What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 185 of the Creativ Rise podcast. So glad you are here today. We're going to be talking about a $5,000 deal, a $5,600 deal, and a $78,500 deal. Three deals, three of my favorite deals over the last decade of being a professional photographer and filmmaker, and then eventually becoming a brand builder. And these are not the biggest deals. They're not the smallest deals. These are not all the deals. These are just three deals that I think are crucial to my growth journey as a creative. These three deals are three deals that taught me something different. Now, every deal you'll ever do as a creative, if you're open to it, will teach you something. But these three deals I thought were cool, and I wanted to share them on the podcast, and most importantly, share how I got those deals: the $5,000 deal, the $5,600 deal, and then a $78,500 deal. But more importantly, share what I learned from those deals from whatever we were doing. So I'm going to break that down in this episode. But first things first, I want to say, number one, welcome back to the show. Number two, we celebrate wins here at Creativ Rise. If you're new here, my name is Joey. I started Creativ Rise back in 2019. My wife and I, Christy, run it. She came from the wedding space. She was a six-figure wedding photographer for years, like 5, 6, 7 years. Beautiful wedding stuff going on over there. And I came from the brand side. I came from the commercial side, shooting photos and videos for brands, getting to travel all over the world, primarily in the athletic and outdoor space. And then when I was at home, really in the B2B space, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But so that's kind of our backgrounds. We fused together because we believe in a world where more creatives succeed at doing what they love. And the only way to do that is by actually understanding that you are running a business. Therefore, you need to learn business. You got to learn how to productize your art and deliver it to the marketplace, whether it's to the wedding marketplace or whether it's to the commercial marketplace. This podcast exists to help you do that. So glad you're here. Welcome to episode 185. Let's talk about what I just said. We celebrate wins here at Creativ Rise. What does that actually mean? Well, we believe that there is a huge hole in the creative industry where people do not get the support they need because everything that is seen as a win is a loss for somebody else. And that is something that I just don't subscribe to. I do not believe that if you were to get a deal right now, you were to get a $5,000 deal, that's not $5,000 I lost. There is more than enough to go around in the economy of creative business, right? So one of the things that we really try and push with Creativ Rise is we try and create environments where creatives get to share the wins they are getting for two reasons. Number one, so that they can be celebrated, because dang, does it feel good to be celebrated by people who are just like you, other creatives who are just like you. It feels so good. But more importantly, it's really cool to humbly share a win you have and then get to also explain how you got that deal or something you learned, so that a win for you is actually a win for the whole community because everyone gets to learn what happened. That's what I want to do today on today's podcast. But before I do that, I actually want to introduce you to a couple different wins that have been happening inside of the Creativ Rise community in the last week and a half. So the Creativ Rise community is our place for people that go through the 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind, which is our foundational business incubator that we take people through in 6 weeks to give you a 6-figure foundation for your business. Started that in 2019. It's been running ever since for the last 5 years. All the grads that go through that get the chance to stay in the Creativ Rise community. Now, in the Creativ Rise community, we meet with them monthly. We do a bunch of other stuff like that, really help them continue to grow their businesses, and we get to hear their wins. So here's a couple wins from the community this week, and I want to share these. One, to fire you up, but two, to also see if there's something you can learn from these. And then I'm going to get into that $5,000, $5,600, and $78,500 deals, three of my favorite deals that I've ever had. I'm going to get into those, share some of those wins from my perspective, and then I'm going to teach you how I got those and what I learned. So let's jump on into this. So right off the bat, Karianne is awesome. She is a social media manager and strategist, also a photographer and filmmaker. Her husband's a photographer and filmmaker. So they own an agency that fuses all that together. Beauregard Media, that is up just outside of Ottawa. Great team. They're so awesome. She said, hey, couple of recent wins for Mig and myself. Just received a deposit for $12,000 video production for a brand video. We are so pumped for this one. We rented a sick location and we will have a model on set. Congratulations. It's awesome. Just locked in. Here's the second one. Just locked in a $2,700 per month, 3-month contract retainer today. It's a wallet and everyday accessories company. We did lots of one-offs with them during the last 2 years to get to this point. Haha, something you can learn from there. One-offs can lead to retainers if you structure that relationship properly. Last but not least, I also said we also got hired by a big production company for a 2-day corporate shoot. And then in brackets, one of those days is scouting only at $6,500. So If you put all these three together, the $2,700 times three, that's almost $9,000 plus the $12,000 plus the $6,500. It's like $20,000 of new deals for Mig and Carrie Ann. Shout out to you guys. Way to go. I'm going to keep going here. Jasmine says, hey, we just got an $8,000 wedding photo and video package. Finally getting to the price range we want to be in for video. That's awesome, Jasmine. She's so great. Jasmine and Jacob, they're up in Minnesota, killing it as a husband-wife team. 3 lessons, though, they learned. She said 3 lessons we learned. Number 1, respond fast. They inquired Tuesday. I met with them just now, and they booked a full deposit after our meeting was over. So in the same week, they inquired, she had a meeting, and they booked. She acted fast. Something there about efficiency. People love to just jump into the momentum of efficiency. Number 2, this is my first time going over the proposal while on a call. It definitely helped me keep momentum that they had already seen and understood my packages and were able to digest it with me. So kudos to you, Jasmine, having the nuts to bring up a proposal on a call. It's not easy to do that, but it is so effective. That's something else you can learn, guys. Get really serious about your sales calls. Get really serious about helping them understand what your offers are and how they can work with you. And last but not least, they found us through one of the many vendors that reached out to this spring, that I reached out to this spring. So definitely be doing more of that. Jasmine said on a plane, like 50 emails to a bunch of different vendors saying, hey, I would love to cross collab with you and share leads. Can we do that? And boom, she just got an $8,000 wedding inquiry because of Aiden Federson. Feds love this guy. He's up in the Okanagan in Canada, British Columbia, Canada. He said, I just landed my first retainer, $1,600 a month for 3-month minimum. Start a contract, all for a local triathlete who wants to create trendy reels or bring a new following. I'll be shooting for 2 hours each month and delivering 4 reels, 2 to 3 photos. Stoked to get to work. Attaboy Feds. Giles Palmer, also in British Columbia, Canada, just booked the video wedding package for a great young couple this August. $3,500 for a day coverage, 8 hours and an edit of the day. Pretty nice to pick up these last minute sometimes. That is super last minute for a wedding that's coming up in August. And then here's the last 3 that I'm going to rip through really quick. Chanel Whitaker, Chanel Ryan, awesome. I've been lagging on posting on here, you guys. I'm sorry, but big win. I just added up this year's income from Jan 1 to the beginning of July, and it was $46,754. This year, Jan 1 to now, is over doubled that at $80,115. So Chanel's just giving an update saying from last year, 2023 to 2024, we have over doubled our income as a husband-wife team, which is incredible. That's exactly why Creativ Rise exists. Shout out to you, Chanel and Ryan. Victoria, $1,111 for a 2-hour personal brand session with a high-performance trainer. Couple $100 for some headshots. What I learned, showing my face consistently around will always help build reputation and credibility. Both of these came from a co-working space I work in once a week and bi-monthly offer many headshots for the members while I'm working there. What is she doing? She's giving value up front. Boom, she just booked a 4-figure deal because of that value. Last but not least, this is the last one I'm going to say. Hope this is really encouraging for you to hear these. Brian, Karanishi, just had him on the podcast, just recorded it. His episode's coming out soon. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this. But he says, hey, friends, I wanted to share a couple of huge ones for me in the past month. This month, we hit $40,000. For the month of May, we did 51 shoots for all of our real estate, and that was split between myself and my team member, which is nearly double what I was able to do by myself this time last year. This was the start of our busy season, so we're definitely stoked on some of these long days and early mornings. Having another team member definitely helped take some of that extra weight off, while also being able to serve our clients at the fullest potential. So Brian just had his biggest month ever, $40,000 in one single month, because he was able to hire a really good team member, somebody to work under him at his company that can help him handle the scale and capacity of what his business has grown to. It's amazing. And then his second one was, he said, I just booked a $8,000 destination wedding for 2025. This one's a dream come true since I started filming weddings. My dream destination was Hawaii. And thanks to a photographer referral, I was able to book a wedding in Kauai. So what's the lesson here? Number 1, hire people before you need them. Brian did a great job of that, and his business has been able to grow to $40,000 this past month. And number 2, he just booked an $8,000 destination wedding from what? Pitching a bunch of brides? No, a referral. So the industry relationships you build, guys, are so important. So I hope that fires you up and you go, wow, that's really, really cool to hear some of those wins and learn some things from them. So here's the takeaway for that. You need to be in a creative community that is supportive. I cannot tell you how many times I meet creatives. I met one literally last week, and he was telling me, he was like, dude, I just want to be doing what I know is possible for me to be doing. I'm seeing other people doing it. but I just don't feel like I know anybody personally that is doing it. Everyone I know is stuck in boring 9 to 5s. They're not fulfilled with what they're doing. And honestly, it's hard for me to really crack what I'm trying to do because I'm just surrounded by people that aren't cracking what they're trying to do. What was my answer? Get in a creative community. That's my answer for you today. My biggest takeaway from all those wins, guys, those things fire me up, and I'm the one leading the community. Get in a community that shares wins, and a community that is focused on community over competition. Everybody learning, everybody growing over individual growth. That's the key to growing really, really fast. So if you want to do something like that, well, great news. The next round of the Creativ Rise Mastermind, round 12, is coming up. It's the exact same thing that every single person that you just heard a win from has gone through in their own creative business journey. The 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind is coming up starting September 15th. Applications go live to the public on September 1st. If you want details on that, go to creativrise.com. You can join the waitlist there so you can get all the info and you will hear about it first. But let's jump on to what I was talking about. Let's get into what my favorite 3 deals are over the last decade. Now, it's crazy to say decade, but I started my creative business as a filmmaker. That's what it started out as the beginning. I was just doing a little video company. I started my own video company when I was 15 years old. And I think I registered it when I was 15. And that was in the summer of 2014. I was going to turn 16 in the summer of 2014, but I started it before I did that. Sorry, in the fall. I started it in the summer of 2014. So I was 15, I think, when I actually registered my company. So I have been doing this registered like professionally for a decade now, which is so crazy because I feel like time just went like this. And there's been a lot of deals, a lot of really great deals over the last decade. There's been some bad deals. There's been some deals that I'm never going to do that again, or I learned. We want to talk about the one time I flew across the whole world, shot a commercial for the biggest ride sharing company in the world, and they never paid me. And they took the media and totally ripped me off. And I had to pay out all these expenses to all the people that were helping me with the shoot. I got bad deals. I got good deals. But the ones I'm going to talk about today were 3 good deals. And so I want to dive into my favorite 3 jobs in the last 10 years of being self-employed and what you can learn from them. I'm going to teach you how they came to be, how I got those deals, and then what I personally learned from them in hopes that you can learn from them as well. So the first deal that I want to highlight, number 1, my first deal that I want to highlight today, and this is coming in first because this was my dream client. So a little bit of context. When I started my business when I was like 15 years old officially, but the years before that, for context before that, the years before that, from about 12-ish, I was making videos every day, like literally every day. And they were based in the outdoor action sports kind of culture that I grew up in. Lots of skiing, snowboarding, skateboarding, camping, hiking, wakeboarding, water sports, everything you can think of when it comes to being outside as a Canadian kid. And one of my goals was to always work with Red Bull. And then one of my goals eventually became I always wanted to work with Yeti. And I've not worked with Red Bull, but I have worked with Yeti. And that was a milestone for me. So the first deal I want to tell you about and show you how I got it and what I learned from it is working with Yeti. Now, I worked with Yeti back in 2019, and I was giving them a small campaign in terms of deliverables, but it was a pretty important campaign in terms of the campaign. And it was important because I was working with Yeti, the headquarters, like actual Yeti, helping them launch Yeti Canada as they were breaking into a new economy, a whole new country. And Yeti's pain point was they were saying, hey, I want to figure out, they were like, hey, we want to really make sure we figure out how to sell our coolers with the right media that's actually going to hit with the demographic of people who live where you live, who live in Canada. We don't want to just post massive photos on billboards of guys on a ranch down in Texas. It's cool. Lots of Canadians would think that's cool, but it's not as like, hey, we got you. We really understand you. You need a Yeti for your lifestyle here, because it's all the way down in Texas. So their aim was to go, hey, we want to really create some Canadian content that is relevant to the consumers that we're trying to sell these products to in your area. Can you help us with that? So the question is, how did I get the deal? Short story, well, he reached out to me. The marketing manager at Yeti reached out to me, which was a total surprise. I remember waking up one day, seeing an email from his name at Yeti.com, and I went, are you kidding me? Like, this is my dream. I was freaking out. I was like, this is incredible. I cannot believe Yeti just reached out to me. But the story doesn't start there. The story actually has to go back because that year I was really trying to implement this thing that we call the 10-cent rule, which is where you're going to take 2 cents you have. You know, when someone says, oh yeah, hey, that's my 2 cents, and they comment on something. Well, I was trying to do that virtually. Like, how do I give my 2 cents 5 times a week to people that I want to engage with? It's a way of networking on social media. I was engaging with Yeti, giving them my 10 cents every single week. I was commenting on their posts, giving them my 2 cents. I was sharing their products on my stories, giving them my 2 cents. I was commenting and responding to their stories. I was, following them on other platforms and doing the same thing. I was trying to get in their ecosystem so I would just be a familiar name with the hope that one day when they're sitting in a boardroom and they say, hey, we need to hire somebody to shoot this creative campaign for us. Who do we know? Somebody would go, oh, there's this dude named Joey that's been commenting on stuff. Is that exactly what happened? I will never know. But what I do know is that worked in helping get in front of them. So when it came time to look for somebody, they ended up reaching out for me. So how did I get the gig? They reached out for me. They reached out to me. But the truth is, I was really doing, you call it, preliminary work in order to put myself in their environment so I could be someone that they would want to reach out to. So that's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned about working with Yeti, I was set out to produce about a 10 image campaign for them to really help launch a lot of their Canadian marketing. And the biggest thing I learned on that shoot was they were so strict about how their products are used. And so I had a meeting with them prior to the shoot, prior to the campaign really even being developed, where they said, like, here is our brand brief. Here's the do's and the don'ts with our product. Here's the yeses and the nos for locations. Here's the yeses and absolute no's for the type of people we want in the shots. And that was phenomenal for me to have that conversation because, to be honest, I would probably have really missed the mark if I didn't go through some of that training because they have insanely strict guidelines. And so the lesson here, one of the things that it taught me and the lesson for you is getting preliminary brand training on, like, hey, what are the different things your brand has to be associated with? What are the different ways your product has to be used in images or in videos? What are the things, here's a great question to ask. What are the things that if I did wrong, the content is completely not usable? I got to ask those questions and have that meeting with them. And so from my perspective, it really, really helped me go into that campaign with confidence. And that was a massive thing that I learned as a part of working with Yeti 2019. And it was a blast. It was super, super fun. So that is probably on my top list of favorite deals I've ever done because it was just a dream client. It wasn't the biggest deal I've ever done, but it was an important deal because it really checked a cool box, scratched the itch in me that I've been wanting for years. And it was just an awesome, awesome opportunity to work with such a cool company. They're a really cool company. So let's move on to number 2. This is my second favorite job I've probably ever done is a job that was with a promotional company. This was all the way back in 2018. Now, a promotional company is a company that puts things on things. They put logos on hats. They put engravings on water bottles, right? They will engrave anything, stitch anything, put your logo on anything. They're a promotional company. So they are a B2B company, meaning they're a business that works with other businesses. They're not selling direct to the consumer, to people like me. They're selling from business to business. And B2B was something that I did not grow up thinking I'd ever want to work in. I was never like, oh, I really want to work in the B2B industry as a creative. No, you're like, I want to work with like Patagonia and Yeti and North Face and Red Bull, right? You don't think about B2B stuff. But if you do not think about B2B stuff, you are losing out on potentially a lot of revenue for your business. And it can actually be quite enjoyable. So I learned a lot about this deal. This deal was for a headlining film. It was $5,000. And a headlining film is simply a 45 to 90-second video that describes the story of the company, who we are, what problems we attack in the world, how we do that for our clients, and then what results you're going to get if you work with us as a business. And this headlining film goes on their website. It goes all over their social media. It goes into the email footers of every single one of the company's emails. So when their sales guys are emailing and trying to get new business, there's a video in down at the bottom that will build trust with new prospects. Headlining films are incredibly crucial. And I sold this one for $5,000, which I thought was a ton of money at the time. And how did I get the deal? Well, I got referred by a mutual friend who actually worked at that company. I didn't know him super well, but he knew me and we were acquaintances. And he said, hey, I know you guys are really good at video. Can you consider coming in and talking to our CEO about helping him make a video? And I said, sure, let's do it. So I go in, it's 2018. I sell them on this deal and I sold them on a 2-day deal. The first day was a half day. So I'd come in, I think I went in at like 1 p.m. and I stayed from 1 till 4. I scouted everything, planned out all my shots on where I was going to shoot stuff. I talked to the different people inside of the company that I wanted to film for, like, specific shots in the actual video. I got made sure they were comfortable being in that environment. And I also scripted out their whole voiceover for them with the CEO and then with one of the communications people. So we developed that in the first half day. And then the second day, we shot everything. So it's not a huge project, but it's a really valuable project to them because this headlining film has the potential to close one client. One client could be worth, $100,000 to them of promotional products over the next 12 months, right? So it's very important when you're working with B2B companies, you know what's at stake. If you do something well, you know what the upside is. And if you don't do it well, you know what the downside is. So how did I get the deal? I got the deal because I was referred by a mutual friend. But the thing I learned about this deal was that you do not get what you don't ask for. Working with this company, it was a $5,000 deal. And I remember walking out of the second day of production. The first day was the scripting and voiceover and, planning everything. The second day was actually shooting. I remember walking out of this business. I shook the CEO's hand and he was like, "Hey, man, this was awesome. You guys were a lot of fun. Like, thanks for coming out. This was great. You just made it enjoyable for us." And I just looked back at him. I said, "Hey, totally. I appreciate you hiring us. It's super fun to get to know you guys." And then I said, "Do you know anybody else that would benefit from something like this?" I asked him the question. And he said, "You know what? Yeah, I got a bunch of friends that own businesses." And what he did was he started sharing what we had done for them with a ton of his friends that own businesses. He sent out an email to a bunch of them. And that dude, that CEO, just him was responsible for me getting another like $40,000 to $50,000 of new headlining films in the next 6 to 8 months. So I got another 5 to 7 projects of new headlining films just from me asking, "Do you know anybody that might need a solution like we just gave you?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, this has been great. Let me email some of my buddies." So the thing that I learned at this deal, the second deal, was a $5,000 deal back in 2018. But it got me so much work in the later half of that year and then in 2019 because I simply asked the question, "Do you know anybody else that might need a solution like this?" Once he told me that he was really impressed with us. And his response was, "Absolutely. Let me connect you to some people." So you do not get what you don't ask for. Asking for referrals when you've given a really good experience is not a selfish thing. It's actually just a relationally bonding thing. He was able to say, "Hey, thanks. You guys have been great." And "Hey, thank you. You guys have been great. Could you maybe do this thing for me?" He had every right to say, "No, I don't know anybody," or "I'll think about it," and never get back to me. But he's like, "Yeah, absolutely. Let me help you." So there's probably been times where people have wanted to do that for your business. Maybe it's at a wedding and the bride's like, "Thank you so much. Oh my gosh." Did you ask, "Hey, are any of your bridesmaids getting married? If they are, I would love to come back to that wedding because it'd be great to see you again, and I'd love to shoot their wedding." Maybe you walked out of a commercial shoot, or you're in an email chain or on a video call, getting feedback on the work you did for a brand, and you don't ask the question, "Hey, is there more work coming up the pipeline that I could get to work on with you guys? I've really enjoyed this." So you don't get what you don't ask for. Lesson learned on number 2 is that you've got to ask for what you want. Ask for referrals and ask for more work, okay? Number 3, to wrap this up, the third deal, this was a bigger deal. This was $78,500 deal that actually happened the tail end of last year into the beginning of this year. So late 2023 into 2024. This was a really fun deal. And this is getting on my top 3 list because it was something that was an accumulation of my skills that I have stacked over the last 10 years that I got to tie into one single offer for a company. So this is a beauty hydration skincare product that was actually getting launched by somebody that I built a relationship with. And so how I got the deal, we'll start there. How I got the deal was plain and simple. I was actually having coffee with this couple that I used to pay to coach me and teach me how to run a better business. I did that all the way through 2018 through about 2020. And so about 3 years of them helping me in different ways, attending events that they were running. And so I was in SoCal with Christy, my wife, and Christy and I just hit them up and I was like, "Hey, do you guys want to have, coffee? We're near where you guys are." They're like, "Absolutely, let's do it." So we went out for coffee early in the morning. We're walking their dog. We're sitting at a coffee shop. And I just started inquiring about some of their new business ventures. And one of the things that came up was that our friend, she's a female founder. She was saying, "Yeah, I feel like it's not always as easy as it seems to find good creative partners. I'm struggling in this area. We're struggling with this team over here and this team that we had hired. We feel like we're losing money over here. And I just kept saying to her, oh, yeah, I think I might have somebody to connect you with. Let me connect you. Would it be okay if I connect you with this person? I really trust them. And throughout the conversation, the husband then looks at me and goes, you should just do this, bro. Like you kind of know everybody in this space. You've been doing all this creative stuff for the last decade. And he was like, you're really good at all the brand building stuff. Would you consider that? And so Christy and I looked at each other and went, we should consider this. So we took a step back from that, followed up with them and said, hey, here's what it could look like if we were to do this for you. And this was a deal for us to do all of the, they basically came with a product and with a primary logo, nothing else really. We redid almost all of the logo stuff. The colors, everything outside of the logo we redid. We ended up redoing the colors, changing up and shifting some fonts. We did all of the narrative design. So we ran our product called Brand Therapy, where we do a one-day in-person overhaul of the whole brand narratively, and then a lot of visual overhaul came out of that. So we built the whole brand narratively. We helped build the entire infrastructure for the brand visually. We helped add that in and see how that gets involved into the product. We built the social strategy to launch the company social-wise because it's a brand new company. We then built the transition strategy for her personal brand to help transition into this new product launch. We helped build a website. We then did a shoot with a bunch of video for her transition. We then did a separate shoot with a ton of models, a couple great locations for a bunch of video and a bunch of photo that Christy and I ran, all of that. So there was a lot going on. We were handling basically everything that you would put under the label of brand managers. We were handling basically if it had to do with the brand, we were basically handling it and helping them build it out. So this was an awesome deal because the thing that I learned on this deal, I'm going to give you another two things I learned on this deal. But the first thing I learned on this deal, a $78,500 deal, was that just because you haven't done something before holistically, a client comes to you and says, hey, can you do this, 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 and this? Just because you haven't done all of those things for one client at the same time does not mean you were not the right person to do it. So I had never done social management, social strategy, web development, photo and video campaign launches, social scripting, and really creating hooky, really, really good transition content to help tell the story of the new thing, all the way out to building out the brand deck, building out the narrative brand, all the way to building a visual brand. I never did all of that for the same person at the same time. I've done all of those things over the last decade many, many times, but all individually or a few of them at the same time. I've never done them all at once. And so I could have looked at that and gone, this just seems like too much. This seems like something I wouldn't be able to do. Or I could have looked at that and gone the way I did look at it. Christiana looked at it and said, we'd be great at this. We have all of these skills. Absolutely, we're going to do this. We're going to take this on. So lesson number one is just because you haven't holistically done everything that somebody's asking you to do at the same time does not mean you're not the right fit. Step up to the plate, knock it out of the park, which is what we did. Lesson number two that I learned is that the biggest deals in your career, this is one of the bigger ones I've had a few like this. The biggest deals in your career are not always overnight agreements. This is something that, if I'm really honest with you, I met these guys back in 2018. I've been building relationship with them over the last, call it 6 years. And me building relationship with them was never with the intent to get a $80,000 deal out of them. That was never the intent. The intent was always to give them value and build genuine friendship with them because they're awesome people. But in the nature of that process, sometimes paths cross and there's alignment there to help each other. And that's what happened. So the second takeaway here is that don't get frustrated when you see the seeds being planted with a lot of really, really good relationships, but none of them are cash flowing right now. Don't get frustrated with that. Just plant more seeds. Keep planting seeds and keep watering them. Keep giving value to people. Keep being a genuine, solid person who looks to give more than they take in this life. And just keep planting seeds. And you never know that if 5 years down the road, there is going to be a really, really decent sized deal that comes your way because of a solid relationship you've got, whether it's directly with a person or whether it's through another person via referral. The lesson here is just because you've been planting these seeds and they're not coming to fruition overnight does not mean that they might not turn into something down the road. So hopefully this was really helpful for you guys. If you want to work with brands, just like I've been explaining on this podcast, today, we'll get a great brand new resource for you. It is called the Brand Pricing Workshop. All you got to do is go to creativrise.com/brand pricing workshop, and you can get the entire thing for free. It's like an hour of me teaching you how I actually price deals as a creative, the do's and don'ts of pricing in the brand space. And even better, if you're like, well, Joey, this is great, but I'm also in the wedding space. Well, Christy did a beautiful workshop on the exact same topic, but in the wedding space called the Wedding Pricing Workshop. When and how to actually raise your prices. So all you do is go to the description of the podcast or go to creativrise.com/wedding pricing workshop. There you can get all that for free. Would love for you to have those. Actually, take both workshops if you want. 2 hours. I promise you, if you give 2 hours to both of those workshops, they're an hour each. You'll be in a much better place than you were today as you listen to this with your pricing and with your confidence around pricing, and really just your confidence around being a creative and charging into the last half of 2024. So I hope this is really helpful for you guys. Again, biggest takeaways from today's episode, I would love for you to take this away, is number one, getting community with people that are going to encourage you, that are going to share in a humble way, share their wins with you so that you can learn from them and also get fired up and take the momentum from them, borrow a little bit of momentum from them. And the second takeaway that I really want to encourage you with is that all of these deals that I've gotten over the years, as I said in the beginning, there are ups and there are downs, but every deal that you ever have had or will have, there is something to learn from it. The same way I just shared some learnings from some of these deals that I've had. So I want to encourage you, analyze some of the deals that you've had in the past and just go, what is there to potentially learn from some of the deals I've had that I maybe haven't actually dug out of that deal yet and learned from it? And then going into the future, as you analyze new deals, as you get new deals as a creative, just think about every deal you ever get. Go into it with an open mind of what can I learn from this that's going to make me a better creative for the future. And I hope that is helpful. Again, I'm Joey from Creativ Rise. Hopefully today's episode was so helpful for you. Great to see you today. We'll catch you next week with episode 186. If this is really helpful for you, shoot me a DM at Joey Spears on Instagram or at Creativ Rise, whatever one. Shoot us a DM and just tell us what you liked about this episode. Even better, if you give us a 5-star rating and written review on Apple Podcasts, that really helps the show grow. But the best of all, send this to a friend that you know also needs to hear about how to, take a deal, analyze what you can learn from it, and then, move on through life. Even better because you're taking new learnings. Send this episode to somebody who could learn from some of the things that I have learned throughout the last decade of being a professional photographer, filmmaker, and brand builder. That's it for today, guys. Cannot wait to see you next week. Hopefully this is really helpful. We'll catch you then.